Welcome back. It's week 15 of the NFL season. We're talking all about Sunday's slate of NFL action. I got 4 player props plus 1 Underdog fantasy entry at the end of the video. What's going on? My name's Austin. I'm not going to necessarily do a recap of how Saturday's picks did because they're going on right now. However, we will dive into those picks and recap them probably for the Monday night video that we post later on, probably on Sunday. But either way, I do want to talk about Underdog fantasy once again. They have a free square for Sunday. It's for Lamar Jackson to get 1 yard. He's going to get that done on Sunday Night Football. It's only for new users. And make sure when you sign up, use our code COS or the top link in the description. You get a 100% deposit match up to $100. They're going to match your first deposit. It's a potential for $100 free. Take advantage of it, and you will get that free square for Lamar Jackson. And you could throw it in the parlay that I talked about at the end of this video, and you can win yourself some money, hopefully. But without further ado, let's dive into our favorite picks. Later on, after this video is posted, we will have our favorite parlays video posted. We've been doing really well in these parlays. We try to cook up, something between plus 500 to plus 1,000. We've been doing really well. So if you've been tailing those, you've probably been making some good money. We'll have that video posted, I'll say, at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So after this video on Saturday, probably be live. And maybe by the time you're watching this, it's already live. I'll link it in the description, in the pinned comment, and at the end of the video. But you guys came here for winners. Let's dive into this first one, my favorite pick of the weekend. It's a little bit tricky how I'm playing it, but you'll understand an easy pivot for the people out there. It's Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers is over in rush attempts. Now, I have 2 bets for Mr. Chuba Hubbard. Here's how I'm taking him. I'm doing 1 unit on his over 15.5 rush attempts, which is minus 140 on BetMGM, but I'm sprinkling, just a little sprinkle, a quarter of a unit on his 20 plus rush attempts, which is plus 400 on Bet365. Now, if there are people out there that do not have access to Bet365, I do like this for 1.25 unit at 16.5. And honestly, if you don't have the ability to take 20 plus, just do the 16.5 for 1 unit or 1.25 units. And I think you're in a good spot here for Chuba Hubbard. Now, if you've never heard of him, like I said, he's a Carolina Panthers running back, and I really like him on Sunday as they're back at home taking on the Falcons. Now, since Frank Reich was fired as the Carolina Panthers head coach, the Panthers really haven't necessarily gotten much better. They've still lost all the games, but they have ran football a little bit more, and we've seen in those 2 games post-Reich, if you will, Hubbard, 25 and 23 rush attempts, averaging 4.2 and 3.8 yards per carry. Panthers have lost both games. One of them was by 3 points. The other was by 22. They were not competitive in really either of these 2 games because the one they lost by 3, they scored a touchdown with like 5 minutes left. A little bit closer, I guess. You can call that competitive, but still not too competitive. And we see they still gave the ball to Chuba Hubbard a ton, and I think they're going to give it to him again on Sunday. And we look at this game. They're only 3-point underdogs against the Falcons. This game is a low over-under at 33.5. They're not expecting a ton of points, and it could be a bad weather game. It could be a pretty rainy game, too. So I really don't think they want Bryce Young sitting back, throwing the ball a ton. I think they're going to lean on the run on 1st and 2nd down. If they're successful, they'll run it again on 3rd down. Chuba Hubbard is that number 1 guy for him. And we've seen even in these 2 games where Chuba Hubbard has dominated the touches, still Miles Sanders is getting his work. He's seen 8 and 10 rush attempts in these last 2 games, but it's just a great matchup for them to run the football against the Panthers, who will be taking on the Falcons, obviously, for the 2nd time this season. Now, they have not played since week 1, so it's hard to really look at that game and say, oh, this is how it's going to go. But in that game, the Panthers did lose by 14, but you did see Miles Sanders, the lead running back at that time, had 18 rush attempts. Chuba Hubbard, who was the backup at that moment, had only 9. Now they've kind of flipped roles. You see Chuba Hubbard getting all the carries. You see Miles Sanders, knocking a ton. I really think Chuba Hubbard is going to continue to dominate the lion's share of the workload. This is a Falcons team. Allows the 9th most rush attempts in the NFL at 28.2 per game. And we just saw last week, Rachaad White had 25 rush attempts. Chase Edmonds had 8. So they combined for 33. So look, in a close game, which I think this honestly is going to be close, I don't see anyone wanting to bet on the Panthers, which is probably why they keep this game close. Even when the game has not been close, Chuba Hubbard's been soaring over this line. I still think this line has not adjusted to how much they're using him and running the football. I'll take Chuba Hubbard. I'll ladder him up to 20 plus rush attempts for plus 400. But if you just want to bet one straight bet, it is his over in rush attempts at 15.5. A tad juiced. I like 16.5 as well. It's less, should be less juiced at 16.5. Chuba Hubbard, go get the ball a ton. If you want to run efficiently, that would definitely help us. But not essential. Just go get the ball a ton. Whoever's the offensive coordinator, just give him the rock. Let him tote the rock a ton. Now let's move to my second play. A guy that is another running back, but this time we're taking him for receiving yards. It's Jerome Ford of the Cleveland Browns, over 14.5 receiving yards, minus 110 on Bet365. This line was available on FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Caesars. I would take it up to about 18.5, although I would not play it a lot higher. We know how sharp they can be on lines like this at the end of the season. But I really do like Jerome Ford in the new role. Well, not really new role, but just his role as the pass-catching running back for the Cleveland Browns. And we look at this game, we could see a little bit of rain, but I'm not too concerned about rain. I mean, we're thinking about, this is not a guy that's running deep routes. He's going to run short routes. So heck, rain might even help us. If you're just trying to throw it short, that's going to be Jerome Ford's territory. And the Browns are playing host to the Bears, a matchup we've targeted a ton for running backs. And why? Well, you're going to just hear about that in a second. But Joe Flacco, once again, starting for the Cleveland Browns, signed him for the rest of the season. So he's going to be out there. But in 2 games with Flacco at QB, Ford, 3 receptions for 33 yards, 5 receptions for 31 yards, soaring over this line. We all know Joe Flacco at his age and his time in his career, not very mobile. He's not trying to run the football a ton. So when he gets under duress, he's not running. He's going to dump it off to the running backs, and that's going to be Jerome Ford probably chilling there. We talked about this time and time again. The Bears give up a ton of receiving yards to opposing running backs because they play a lot of cover too. Got a lot of too high safeties, and that leads to a lot of open guys underneath, typically in the flats, and that's exactly where running backs typically are. We've seen, when you look at the running backs just against this team, they just give up a ton. I mean, they're giving up the second most receptions per game, giving up the third or the most receiving yards per game to opposing running backs. And we've seen, over the past 2 games, Jerome Ford playing a ton of snaps, running a lot of routes. He's played 51 and 57% of snaps. He's run 18 and 24 routes compared to 10 and 7 for Kareem Hunt, 6 and 1 for Pierre Strong. So even if they are leading in this game, I still think they're going to have to pass a little bit. And if they get into a 2-minute drill, likely going to be Jerome Ford out there. And we know Flacco's not going to be, gunslinging it all around. I really like Ford. It could just take him 1 reception. I consider it as over 2.5 receptions. I'll just take the receiving yards, though. I think he could get 2 receptions for 20 yards. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Jerome Ford, go catch some balls and go have a big day. And my third play is going to be a passing quarterback. It's a passing yards prop. Last week we took Desmond Ritter's over in yards, and the man went berserk. He had almost 350 yards. Hopefully that's the same case for this guy today. It's Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals, over 209.5 passing yards, minus 115 on DraftKings. I would take this to about 216.5. Most books are right around this line. FanDuel was a little bit higher than most books at about 214.5, but end of the day, I really like Kyler Murray in this spot as big underdogs at home. I think he's going to be slinging the ball around all day long. Now, we've seen, obviously, Kyler Murray did not play the majority of this season. They had Josh Dobbs, Clayton Tune in there. But in 4 games since his return, Kyler Murray has thrown for 249, 214, 256, and only 145 yards prior to their bye week last week. That was against the Steelers, a team they dominated. They ran the ball all over them. They really need to pass it. Now you got a game, 12.5-point underdogs against the 49ers. We've talked with the 49ers before. What are they great at, and what do teams know they're great at? Stopping the run. This 49ers team allows the fewest rushing yards per game in the NFL. Teams just abandoned running the football against them. And on the flip side, they allow the 3rd most passing attempts in the NFL and the 16th most passing yards at 222 per game. Now, you could say, Austin, well, they're giving up a ton of pass attempts. Why don't we just take Kyler Murray's over in pass attempts? Well, I don't disagree with that. I think he could hit the over 32.5 pass attempts. Sometimes I feel like it's easier. Let's take Aiden O'Connell, for example. We took his over 30.5 pass attempts on Thursday Night Football. He soared over his passing yards line well before he got to his pass attempts line. That could be the case here today, where I feel like the line is low enough to where if he gets 30 pass attempts, he probably clears this line pretty easily. And we've seen him actually dominate this matchup in 5 career games versus San Fran. Kyler has thrown for 241, 150, 230, 247, and 239 passing yards. In those games, he also ran for 34, 67, 91, 75, and then only 1 rushing yard. So he's had a ton of rushing yards in these games and still soaring over this line. I don't necessarily know how eager he is to run this day and age. He will still run if he has opportunities. And I did look at his over in rushing plus passing or passing plus rushing yards. I still do think this is just a good spot for him to target passing. I mean, in all these games, he's hit the over. He's done it when passing yards too. And we've seen 8 of 13 QBs that face the 49ers this season have thrown for over 230. 5 of the last 7 have done that as well. And I just think Kyler Murray, we all know how talented he is. This is a guy that when he throws 30 plus times, probably going over this line. He's done that 3 times this season. He's gone over this line in all 3 games. Kyler Murray in his career over this line in 38 of 48 career games with 30 plus pass attempts. That's 79% of the time. So, well, this is a tough matchup. I'm not saying the 49ers defense sucks, can't defend anyone that's throwing the ball. No, that's not the case. They're really good, but they're really good at stopping the run. I think they're going to have to lean on Kyler Murray's arm. And like I said, this is a game where they're probably trailing. They're going to have to come back. We already saw them play earlier this year. Josh Dobbs had 265 yards. He ran the ball 12 times for 48 yards too. So, look, this is just a game I think they're trailing back at home. I think Kyler Murray balls out for the home crowd. I'll take his over in pass yards at 209.5. Now, my fourth play, this will be my final play before we talk about our underdog fantasy entry. It is a guy that owes us. You understand why? Because it's Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders, over 4.5 receptions, minus 125 on Bet365. I would not take this at 5.5, but I would play it up to about minus 145. Now, I've been waiting 2 weeks for Terry to get us our money back. Why is that? Well, last game that he played, 0 receptions. Yeah, if you know, you know. You know why I'm pissed at him for getting 0 receptions. It's not really all his fault. Sam Howell didn't feel like throwing it to him, and he stunk up the joint. And he even put quotes out after the game that he was running a ton of cardio. He owes us. And let's talk about McLaurin, though. And I feel like they're just going to force feed him the ball because we've seen McLaurin normally, 0 receptions. This is the second time in his NFL career that he had 0 receptions. But since week one, in week one was his lowest reception game prior to the 2 weeks ago. He had 2 receptions on 4 targets. The next week, they said, all right, what happened there? They threw the ball 5 receptions, easily 6 targets. They won that game. Since week 2, after that bad game in week 1, McLaurin has 5 receptions in 8 of 11. And he has 4 receptions in all 11. So he's getting real close to this line or getting on the hook or going over. And I'll take my chances with McLaurin going over because, look, this just feels like a bounce back spot for him in the worst way. They need to target him. Like, you don't have a number 1 wide receiver like Terry McLaurin be so good for your franchise for so many years and then just abandon him and not throw it to him for 1 week and then just expect him to be super happy and just be going with the flow, especially in a game you guys got smoked. It wasn't like you won. You lost by like 30 points and you didn't target him at all. I think they get the ball to him early and often. I don't mind his over in yards, but I just think the receptions are the easier way to go. And we see the Rams as a team that plays the 6th most zone coverage in the NFL. Terry, 17 more receptions than any other Washington Commanders pass catcher versus zone coverage. We also look at 9 players over the last 4 weeks have 5 or more receptions against the LA Rams. Like, they've been giving up a ton of receptions. They're decent at stopping the run with Aaron Donald, but they give up a lot of yards and receptions to pass catchers. And we look at Terry's receiving yards line. It's in at 57.5. It went up from last week. He had 0 yards. But you look at that line, he's under that in 8 of 13, under in a lot of consecutive games. He's never gone under that line and still had 5 receptions, but he's always had 5 receptions whenever he's gone over. So I really do like this one. Look, Sam Howell, you better force feed the ball to your number 1 guy. 5 receptions is not that crazy. You could take a lot of short routes. I don't care. Terry could have 5 receptions for 11 yards. I really don't care, but I think they get the ball to him early and often on Sunday. So I'll take his over. 4.5 receptions as my 4th and final play of the day. And finally, it's our Underdog fantasy entry. I'll throw it up on the screen. A reminder, if you want to sign up for Underdog, make sure you use our code COS or the link in the description. They will match your deposit up to $100. Here's my 4 legs. It's all the 4 plays we already talked about. Jerome Ford receiving yards. Chuba Hubbard, rush attempts, it's at 16, could push, whatever. Kyler Murray, pass yards, and Terry McLaurin, over 4.5 receptions. $30 turns into $300. That is what I call a winner. Those are my favorite picks for Sunday. I'll recap how we did on Saturday and obviously how we did on Sunday in the Monday Night Football video, which will probably be posted, Sunday evening. You guys have a wonderful day. If you want to check out our Parlays video, which is posted Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern, it is linked on the screen. Go show it some love. It's Austin. I'm signing out. See you guys in the next one. Peace.